I'm here to talk a little bit about the university resources and support available for students and postdocs with children here at the University of Pennsylvania. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Family Resource Center, where Christina and I have the great honor of working. So the Family Center is a hub for information resources, activities, and advocacy for students and postdocs with children. And we provide a forum for parents to connect and develop supportive networks. And we try to offer a welcoming environment for Penn students, postdocs, caregivers, and children. We are a family-friendly facility on campus, located right on the heart of Locust Walk in the lower level of the Graduate Student Center. We have thousands of visits every year from our families, and we have hundreds of Family Center members join every year. The Family Center is a membership-based facility. It's completely free for students and postdocs to join. You just need to visit our website and click the Become a Member button, and you'll be directed to a form you need to fill out. And membership does give you access to the family-friendly facility on campus, all of our events and activities, and for benefit eligible faculty or students and postdocs, this would get you access to those benefits. So it is important to join the Family Center if you're interested in accessing these. We serve all students and university postdocs, including undergraduates, graduates, professional, full-time, part-time, residential, online, and visiting students and scholars. And just a little bit of a data snapshot, the graduate population at Penn is roughly about 10% of grad students report having children. This is around 1,400 parents on campus per year. And within our postdoc community, roughly 20% report having children as well. So this is just an overview of who we're serving here at Penn. And some of the challenges that parent trainees face can be a little bit hard to navigate. So the Family Center does provide support related to these areas, but I'd like to talk a little bit about them. So in competitive and professional academic environments, parents can be perceived as less committed to their work because of their family obligations. And if parents are expecting a new baby or child and need accommodations and leave, policies vary across campus, and increased receptivity and support is an evergreen issue. And affordable and accessible childcare resources are very important. Our country is amid a national childgiver shortage, and many childcare centers are full and have long wait lists. And in addition to that, childcare is very expensive. The national median for infant childcare is over $17,000 a year for one child and $4,000 a year for one dependent child to be added to a health insurance plan. And these costs can be barriers. In addition to financial support, community support is also important. Parents report feeling isolated when they come to campus because they've moved here from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and their home networks aren't here to support them. So we know that this can be a challenging and sometimes lonely time for our families. But at Penn, we believe parents do not need to choose between having a family and receiving an education or having the career that they want. And so we provide resources and benefits to help you through this experience. And one of the best ways to access this is from our Family Center website. So we have a robust resource website that includes childcare information, guide to local schools and districts, health and wellness information and resources, in addition to targeted parenting support resources and guides to local family attractions, resources for new and expecting parents like lactation support and how to find lactation rooms on campus, and information about Title IX, which are federal protections for pregnant and parenting students.
Yes, thank you, Jess. As Jessica mentioned, we do not ever want to make you think that you have to choose. In fact, the Family Center is here to support you as you are navigating your academic experiences and to be a part of it. So with that, we have our backup care benefits. And I do want to point out first that our backup care childcare is for full-time residential, so that's on campus, full-time residential students and university-affiliated postdocs. What our backup care does is provide you and your family with caregiving in lieu of your regular care arrangements. So this could be in your home or an approved child care center. So if there's something that has come up that would prevent you from completing your academic work or training or whatever your normal day-to-day looks like, we have our backup care benefit for full-time residential that's on-campus students and university affiliated postdocs. And our backup care also includes 7 days of subsidized care. So there's some financial support there. That means that it's only $5 an hour copay for in your home or $15 a day copay for in-center care. So with our backup care, we also have enhanced family support services. So that offers resources and discounts for ongoing family needs. And here we have a list. So there's preferred enrollment and wage registration. This is huge, especially when we think about how much it costs in general for childcare. So having the wage registration fee is a big support, and preferred enrollment, as mentioned before, wait lists are out of control right now. This is a national crisis, not Penn specific, but what we do at the university and through the Family Resource Center is trying to connect you with different centers that can support, and this benefit is one of them to alleviate some of that stress. So at select Bright Horizons Child Care Centers, we do offer the waive registration fees and preferred enrollment as connection to our backup care benefit. We have our tuition discounts that are part of the enhanced family support as well, and that's part of the partner centers, including kinder care centers. That's a 10% tuition discount. Sitter City membership is a source that's used to search and hire caregivers, even pet care, housekeepers, and support for long-term needs as well. And then we also have nanny placement through Jovi, and then there's tutoring and test prep services through Varsity Tutors and Revolution Prep. This is all a part of the enhanced family supports through our partnership with Bright Horizons and our backup care. And last but not least, discounted summer camp options. We know summer camp is a great time to support social and emotional learning development. Specifically, there are programs like Stephen Cates Camp, Code Ninjas, Get STEM, Marco Polo, and more. So besides through our partnerships, the Family Center itself is an amazing resource. We love being with you and your family. That's a big part of what we do with the Family Center is spend time together and really support what it means to be a student parent Penn's campus and this idea of our community. So with that, we have weekly activities and events throughout the year, both in the Family Center and on campus and in the local city areas. We also have social media pages to help you know what's happening in the Family Center in our area. And then, of course, because, we have so much fun, we capture all of our moments. So, for example, if a photo giveaway that's happening that helps us stay connected, and it just ties to us overall as being a family-friendly space. Our programming, the ambiance of our center is really existing to support you in your educational journey and also give opportunities for the whole family to learn and grow together. On this slide, you see a QR code. That's for our Instagram page. I invite you to capture that so that you can follow us and be in tune with what's happening next. More specifically with our programming, the way that we structure it is through different areas like family support or parent support, family fun, and education. We try to center wellness, recognizing that we are coming from 2+ year closure, not just the university, but the Family Center itself. So coming together has been a journey. And with that, we like to do different fun activities. Every week we have pop-up play, again, focus on a social emotional learning development. We like to do educational workshops for families and for our children too. We like to honor diversity through our theme celebrations. We have open ESL English lessons for the entire Penn community, not just Family Center members. And one of our larger events that's annual is our Philadelphia School Information Session. We recognize that many students and postdocs coming to the university are from all over, not just Philadelphia in this area, but from countries all over the world. And Philadelphia is very unique when it comes to our schooling system. So we offer an info session every year to help inform our families about what the processes look like, what the different options are, and connect them with people and organizations that can support them along their journey.
In addition to community engagement and programming, we also do advocacy and advising. So Christina and I can set up advising appointments with individual students and postdocs and their family members. We can talk through all of the resources and benefits available to you. We can also advise on parental leave and accommodation support for new and expected students and their departments. And we also can advise on Title IX. So if you have questions about federal protections for you as a pregnant or parenting student, you can make an appointment with us and we're happy to talk to you about it. In addition to advising, the Family Center does host the Student Parent Advisory Board. This board is crucial to the work that we do. They work directly with us to ensure the delivery of relevant programs and resources for parents and families. So this is a cross-section of students from around the university, different schools and departments and backgrounds, and they give us direct feedback on the experiences they're having at Penn and the experiences they're having at the Family Center. So this is a really important piece, the advising piece. We do want to make sure that your voice is heard as a student parent. So if you want to come talk to me and Christina about your experience or issues you're having or how to navigate it, please definitely reach out to us. I'll just pop our website and email address up here. I would like to just talk a little bit about career services. So this time of year, Christina and we do get many questions about how to navigate being a parent at Penn. And this time of year, it's about how to navigate being a parent at Penn while being in school, while being a parent, and also going on the job market. And this can be a very important part of your Penn experience. And we want to make sure that you have all the information you need so that you're prepared for this important part of your academic and professional life. So we'll turn it over to Career Services.
I am the Director of Graduate Student Initiatives here at Penn Career Services. I oversee the 2 graduate student teams.
Hi, everyone. My name is Esther Ra, and I'm one of the associate directors that works with Joseph. I work on the team that works with the schools of nursing, the Graduate School of Education, and School of Social Policy and Practice.
So much like Jessica shared some of the challenges that students and postdocs experience on campus sort of around integrating their life with their academics, when it comes to the job search process, there are also a range of concerns that people have. Concerns about finding an environment, an employer that is supportive of the balance between work and life, and is supportive of the individual challenges that come along with that. And even the sort of the nuts and bolts challenges of making sure that as you're interviewing, or as you're applying for opportunities, that no one is holding it against you, your life, your family, and those types of things. And so the idea of avoiding possible discrimination when you're applying, if you're pregnant or any other things, if you have children and you're applying for a certain type of role, all of these things are valid, relevant concerns that people can have. Some of them are more tangible to what's happening here in your sort of campus experience. Some are lifelong things that people need to navigate. As we sort of break open these sort of issues, some of these may be the concerns that you have too. Having flexibility. Oftentimes in academia, there's probably more flexibility in many cases as a student or a postdoc, not always, but in many cases. And so wanting to maintain that is going to be important. We talked about the cost of childcare and sort of making sure that the offers that you get from employers are, the salary is high enough so that you can continue to have that flexibility in terms of childcare. Things like parental leave, things like flexibility in childcare, they're all oftentimes built into certain types of jobs, certain types of employer benefits. And so a lot of times you can find out ahead of time what those look like. Supportive company cultures are often dependent on who your boss is and who your co-workers are. Those are things that you might be able to find with a little bit more sort of into the networking sphere of action that you can take. And then this concept of career advancement and whether you're going to be held back at any point in your life because of your the things that are happening in your life, because of your identity, because of all those other elements. Very, very sort of valid concerns to have. And again, thinking about what types of career fields and industries are supportive in terms of overcoming this and addressing that head on is going to be a key aspect of overcoming these concerns to a certain extent. So we're going to cover 4 steps that are sort of critically important. These are important whether or not you are a parent, a caretaker, or a future parent, but we'll sort of touch on the bits that are most relevant as we go through these different steps. The exploration part is obviously key, because as you're thinking about, well, where can I fit in a supportive environment, you have to do some research into what that is and what it is that you're looking for and whether you can see evidence of that. And so the exploration step is a really solid foundation to build on. When I usually define career exploration, I talk about the idea of matching skills, interests, and values to roles that align with your skills, interests, and values, right? And so skills are the things that you are learning, and interests are things that you're learning about at Penn. The values, transcend just the Penn experience, but are important. As we think about being a parent or a caretaker, we're going to sort of focus slightly more on the values today, simply because, that value of having a supportive work environment, having flexibility is sort of what's maybe top of mind to you as you're thinking about finding opportunities and organizations that are out there. On our website, we have this sort of cycle of steps that everyone should be taking as part of their career and professional development. And so the reflect and explore options obviously centers this process of exploration in terms of the first step. Reflecting is thinking about what's important to you, right? And then exploring is to seeing whether that is sort of resonated in the opportunities that you're seeing out there. The ways that you explore are also going to integrate networking, and Esther's going to sort of talk more detail about what that is. And then the interviewing and the negotiating, that's more along the taking actions and making decisions, right? We're not necessarily going to touch on the gaining experience part today, but these three other quadrants we are going to touch on in detail. When I normally talk about career exploration as in a broad concepts, I ask people some of these questions, right? I pose these questions to people as these are important as part of the career exploration process. What is it that I'm interested in doing? If I had a choice, where would I do this work that I want to do? How do I know if what I have and the skills and the knowledge I have is valuable in different career fields? Where have other people like me with a background and knowledge area similar to me, where have they gone on to, right? So those are important questions to ask. The two, I added on for today would be, where can I find that balance and where can I find that supportive community? These first five are covered in detail in a lot of the other presentations and resources that we have. So the 3 videos on the right are all videos that we've created that are available on the Penn Career Services YouTube channel. The Evaluate Your Best Opportunities is from the Beyond Graduate School or the PhD Career Training platform, where it's a built-in curriculum for you to explore and figure out where your skills lie, right? So all of these things you can do in your own time. What I want to do today is really center around these 2 questions here. What are the resources available for you to do that? A lot of it is going to be sort of, foundational research. You're all good researchers in your own way. Graduate students and postdocs, you all have a strong research background. So this is sort of a strength of yours as it is moving forward. None of these exploration tips by themselves are sort of, things that you probably haven't thought about. But I'm going to touch on, how I would approach these in different ways. Obviously, you can look at a company's website. That's a very high level, sort of broad. Yes, we find this helpful. We are supportive. We like people to be supported in their roles. It doesn't necessarily speak to every department, every division, every office in an employer, right? And so, a place like Penn, for example, Penn may have a thing, but there's so many different schools and offices that there's still more research to do to explore what that might look like in a smaller area that you may be focused on. We'll talk about job descriptions in a second, how you can read into those. I'll touch on a tool such as Glassdoor, which is a great way of exploring companies based on the reviews that people have given them. Glassdoor is a great one. Even Handshake, the platform that we use here at Career Services as our student postdoc employer engagement platform, has company and employer reviews that you can take a look at. Many of those reviews are by undergrads applying for roles, so you may not see a lot of mention of balancing work with family considerations, but certainly you can. Networking, Esther's going to touch on, and then social media is a great place to sort of see what people are saying and see how they are celebrating the opportunities that are available to them. So I went to LinkedIn and I searched just in general posts for family friendly as my keyword, right? And a couple of things popped up just as things that people have posted on LinkedIn. These aren't necessarily employers saying these things in this page, but they are discussions about what family friendly means and looks like. And these are 2 sort of organizations that are trying to promote that in different ways. So again, you can look at that, you can see who's participating, you can see who they're tagging, you can sort of find resources out there for the types of fields that you're interested in. This was a recruiter, a talent acquisition person posting a position here. It's a project manager opportunity, and right at the end of this sentence, provide attractive career options, additional leave, family-friendly, flexible work arrangements. So again, they're bringing it as a priority up there in this short paragraph, which gives you a sense of how they are positioning themselves that are out there. So a lot of research that you can do just on social media in general gives you a sense of what people are saying about these types of opportunities. One of the resources that we have on our website is the Vault or First-Hand guides. These are broad industry reviews of different types of job types or industries, so consulting, economics, law, nonprofits. They talk about the sort of the types of jobs that are there. They talk about the trajectory of your roles. If you start in this field, where you may go next. They talk about salary, and they talk about the sort of the experience itself of doing these types of jobs. What does it feel like? What types of pressures are there? What types of balance can you find in this? In broad terms, these are some of the fields that are often seen as being family friendly. But again, it all depends on the individual employers. It all depends on the individual team and division that you may be part of an employer. And there are certainly exceptions to this, where there's evidence to suggest that organizations within these fields are not family friendly. But healthcare, education, technology, government and nonprofits, again, being areas there. It may be that in every field that you find, there are organizations that really prioritize what that looks like. Quickly then, job descriptions are a great way of looking at what companies say about themselves. So job descriptions are usually made up of 3 bits of information: the responsibilities of the role, the skills that they're looking for, and here's why you should work at this organization, right? So I've sort of pulled out information from that last bit for these job titles that I've listed here. The University of California system has always been, for the last 10 years, good at highlighting the support for dual career couples and their policies. And obviously, you could go read up some more about those, but a long track record of understanding that, especially for PhDs and postdocs on the academic job market, it can be very challenging. Greenpeace, one of the first things that they said about themselves in this job posting was about healthy work-life balance and family-friendly policies. And so they're prioritizing in their description of what they do. So these are the types of things that you could be on the lookout for. Raytheon here, their work-life benefits include all of these things that I've highlighted here, and some, that are particularly relevant to our discussion today. So that's going to be good to sort of pay attention to. And then, as you're doing your networking, you might ask people who work at this type of organization how they've used that and how easy it was to use some of those things. Carbon Direct, I love this first line here. While we love our work, our lives aren't defined by it. We offer a robust package, the whole person, their partners, and their families, right? So very much the language that you'd want to be seeing moving forward. Perhaps the most robust one I saw was from the National Wildlife Federation, where they talk about flexible scheduling. They talk about not being depleted by the work that's going on. They talk about end-of-year stress and reflection and rejuvenation. And there's a lot of good language here that you can take a look at that would sort of give you confidence that this was an organization that does value that. Now, again, at a busy point of the year when you're the operations manager and there are lots of projects going on, sometimes that might not turn into every day looks the same, but this is a really solid foundation. And then I just wanted to show you an example of what it sort of language looks like when it's not there, as it were, right? When the language doesn't really sort of say family friendly, right? So this is not a dig at this position. It's just their priorities are in different areas. But when they talk about their benefits, help you protect what matters most: healthcare, savings, financial, and your well-being, right? So no mention of families there. And some of the things that they offer: 24 hours a year to volunteer, and a paid day off to focus on their mental health and well-being, right? So great. It's probably not going to be everything that you'd be looking for there if you're looking for flexibility, just in the way that they've said this. And then finally, for the exploration part, as we shift into networking, there are some resources where you can begin to get some of this information without even having to actually talk to someone, right? So Esther's going to talk about what talking to people looks like. These are some video libraries on our 2 graduate student professional development platforms. This is beyond graduate school, specifically for masters. They have 160, 70 videos with former master students in the world doing things who might be able to share about their experience working in different industries, what that looks and feels like, right? So this is from the master's perspective. This is from the PhD perspective, PhD and postdoc. So this is doctoral students. The same library. In this case, their values and interests are highlighted. So flexibility is one of the things that you could check off here and get people who want to talk about flexibility as part of their work right now. So a lot of just listening as a fly on the wall to these discussions. It's like networking without having to talk to people yourself, but very, very helpful. And what that does, obviously, is it allows you to sort of explore different fields without having to do a lot of work, right? All these different industries and fields have different ways of approaching flexibility. Your job is to find people that have some the answers to the questions that you have. And just so you know, as part of the PhD career training platform, my colleague Esther was one of the people being interviewed. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Esther.
So I'm going to talk to you about networking. As graduate students, you may already know networking is something that you should be doing all the time. There's no timeline to it. I think the biggest misconception, and you may already know this, is that networking starts when you're looking for a job. But in fact, it's something you can always be doing no matter where you are, what timeline you're doing, whether you're looking for a job or not. Something to do that's super important before even going into a networking conversation is to think about some of your work experiences and what you've enjoyed and not enjoyed about them, especially when you're transitioning or if you're going into a different direction, which many graduate students are. You want to think about what pieces of your work experience have you enjoyed? What pieces have you felt like this was really fulfilling and this is what I can see myself doing more of? And in doing those things, where do you feel like your strengths and your skills were displayed so that the organization also benefited? And then I think doing this reflection, you also think about what are your core values and the philosophy that you bring to your work. Networking is building relationships. So many people think of networking as it's a way for me to get a job. While that could be true, the main point in networking is finding that person to connect with and to build that relationship. A nice byproduct might be that you might get a job through that, but really it's to glean information from an individual and also give information. And you want to be talking to, whoever you network with on the goals that you have in mind and in particular fields that you're curious about. And you want to have clear things in your mind that you want to approach the conversation with. One type of networking that we emphasize and we encourage is informational interviewing. Some of you may do this already. It's a form of networking. It's a very casual, less lower stakes conversation that you can have with other professionals, especially when you're interested in venturing out to different fields, learning about new employers or organizations that you're curious about. And you can really approach anyone who'd be willing to chat with you. Informational interviews are a great place to ask very sincere, honest questions. It's a place where, it's low pressure. You're not being interviewed. It's something that you can, target in terms of the exact person that you're speaking with, in terms of their level, their expertise. And it really will be one of the best uses of time. And I know that a lot of people think of networking as, it's this really time-consuming act. And it is. I'm not going to say it's not. But in the time that you invest in setting up that informational interview, you will glean so much great information and it'll help propel you forward. For those of you who are looking for family-friendly organizations, companies, it's a great way to ask insider questions on, just curious, would you know about the culture and the family friendliness factor of the organization, and get that information for yourself. So here's just a quick list of a lot of the folks that you can be tapping into: your faculty, peers, alumni clubs, friends, family, neighbors, individuals that know your friends, family, and neighbors, former coworkers, previous supervisors. These are all folks you can be tapping into. This is on our YouTube. We have a ton of resources on there, and these are some additional resources that we have loaded up from past workshops that we've done. So definitely check those out. This is MyPenn. If you're unfamiliar with MyPenn is our alumni network platform. And all of the Penn alumni, I believe, are on here from 1970s or 80s, I was told. We have Penn alumni from all over the world. Definitely use this. You do need your Penn Key login to be active for you to be able to access this. If there are folks that you feel comfortable speaking with, I would reach out to those mentors that you have. And they don't necessarily have to be here in your graduate school life. They can be, someone you knew before you came to grad school. Setting up interviews with these professionals will allow you to get a glimpse on, some of those family work life balance things that you might not have had before you entered grad school. And so it gives you a glimpse into knowing what questions to ask and how to go about asking some of those questions. When you reach out, make sure that you are clear about your ask. You want to make sure when you're meeting with someone that you have a clear idea of what kinds of questions you want to ask them. And so it's just some, ideas. You want to tell them who you are, what you're studying, what year you are, if you're a doctoral student or a postdoc, why you're reaching out to them. It's always great to mention what you have in common and what overlaps between the two of you, because that will, especially if you don't know them, give them a reason to reach back out to you and respond. And then again, as I said, knowing what your ask is. So for example, I'm interested in learning about the culture of your workplace and finding out more information on what your work life is at X company. And of course, when you're reaching out, express your gratitude for their time. So questions you could be asking while networking, you can ask so many different types of questions depending on your situation, but these are just some samples. Tell me about your parental leave policies. Does the company have on-site childcare or childcare subsidy program? Do you have flexible work arrangements? I think this is much more of a question now post-pandemic. Are there options for remote work, flexible work, part-time if I'm coming back from a maternity leave? Does the company have a culture that values work-life balance and respects employees' personal time? How does your company measure and assess effectiveness of its family-friendly policies? So I'm going to move into interviewing. Interviewing is a bit more, you have more at stake, obviously. And so we're going to talk about that environment as opposed to networking. On our YouTube, we do have these resources available. So please check them out, how to prepare for interviews, how to prepare effectively for upcoming interviews. So I will be talking more about the family friendliness piece of what you would like to get out of interviews in terms of finding that company that might be the right fit for you. So before the interview, you want to plan ahead. You want to make sure you take a look at the company's website. Are there questions that you have about the policies that they've put in place about families, childcare, and dependent? Maybe there aren't any policies listed on the website. And also decide for yourself before you go into the interview how you want to present yourself. If you're pregnant, if your family is expecting, if you and your partner are expecting, do you want to reveal that in your interview? You don't have to. You might need to ask about nursing or a place to pump or other family commitments. And you want to think about those things ahead of time to ask and how to ask them before the interview. So I wrote down flexible work benefits and arrangements. I think these are good to ask in a networking conversation you can have with an insider before you go in, especially if they're really important to you. That way, when you're in the interview, you're well armed and you know how to tailor some of your questions. And of course, interviewing is very stressful. So we advise that as you're juggling family responsibilities, that you make sure to prioritize your self-care. And there's many opportunities to do that on campus. So before you go in, we suggest that you look at websites, read the bios of the interviewers that are interviewing you. Who are the leadership that they're working with? Are they the leadership? You want to look at the benefits, like we mentioned. Look at their social media, like Joseph mentioned earlier as well. What new projects are going on in the company that you can comment on? And have they been in the news at all? And for what reason? Google that. We live in the age of Google, so definitely use that to your advantage. We've had the case where some students, especially in the academic space, when they're interviewing for all day, 1 or 2 day interviews, where they may have just had a child and a pumping space is needed while interviewing. And so this is something that you can request. And so depending on how often you need to do it or what the schedule is like, you'll need to tailor that need for whatever is suitable for you, and know that it's okay to be asking this.
Several students have come to appointments where they've asked this question, and Esther's exactly right. When you have a 2-day on-campus interview, let's say for an academic job, there's no way that you can get around this, right? You sort of have to ask. Now, the conversations that we've had with students about this are, do I ask for what I actually need, right? I need a space to be able to pump, and I need it to be private and lockable, or do you say, I need space, I need some time built into this interview to do some things, right? And so the challenge with the latter, if you're not specific about the needs that you have, not what you're doing, but the needs, is that you might get a space that's just an empty room, but with windows all around it that you can't lock, right? And that's not going to be helpful. So if you aren't wanting to share what you're doing, I think you just have to be very sort of direct and say, it would be fantastic if we could build in a little bit more time. I need 15 minutes every 2 hours, 3 hours in a room that's private and lockable, right? And I think sometimes the hiring manager might not be the best person to reach out to. Sometimes you will be connecting with an HR person who's coordinating the interview, and that person might be more understanding of the fact that these are issues that aren't necessarily meant to be shared, but are accommodations. You can ask for accommodations, but the day before is not helpful, right? So as much time as you can give them, the more benefit there is. And so that sort of speaks to not just pumping, but it speaks to other aspects. You don't have to share, but you do have to sort of share what it is that you need and sort of be confident in that ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the ask might be, I need a room with a sink, or I need a room with a fridge. You need to make that ask specific so they know how to give it to you. Okay, so during the interview, of course, you want to be punctual, and you want to we suggest come beforehand so that you settle in, that you compose yourself, and then review your notes if you have any. And then during the interview, you want to be enthusiastic, positive, and show your interest in the company because, you've done your research, you've looked at their websites, you've looked at their social media. As you're interviewing, you want to showcase your skills and your achievements and highlight how your previous role or any other roles are relevant to the current role that you are applying to. And you want to make sure that you have different stories and narratives in your back pocket to support some of the things that you want to share. And so making sure that you're well prepared for those behavioral interview questions. Last but not least, you want to be able to listen attentively to the interview's questions. It's okay to ask clarifying questions, but also be thoughtful in the questions you ask at the very end, because at the end of every interview, the interviewer will ask, well, do you have any questions for us? That's your time to sort of interview them and ask about some of the questions, especially if it pertains to the family friendliness piece on, what you can ask them that you didn't see mentioned on the website. Some examples that you can ask when they ask you, what questions do you have for us? You could ask, how does your company support employees who are parents or caregivers, such as through flexible scheduling or childcare benefits? Now, this might not have been mentioned on the website, and so that's something that's very, very valid that you can bring up. How does your company promote a work-life balance culture? Another great question I've heard asked is, how does this workplace celebrate accomplishments of the individual and of the individual's families? How does your company ensure that all employees, regardless of caregiving status, have equal opportunities for career growth and advancement? How does your company encourage employees to take time off or vacation or personal days? And how are resources available to help them manage their workload while they're away? As a parent, as a caregiver, you're going to have to take time off for parent-teacher conferences, which I have this week. You're going to have moments where you're going to have to call in sick because you have to grab a child out of school. And so there will be different things that come up. You want to know how will they respond in those kinds of situations, because everyone will have that at some point in their careers. After their interview, again, send that thank you note. Don't forget, it's so important. Within 24 to 48 hours, send that thank you note, personalize it. You want to send it to every single person who interviewed you. So if you were in a panel interview, make sure you get all the names of the individuals if you don't know them all, and send that thank you note and express your thanks, and then mention something. Maybe it was something that was mentioned in the conversation that might lighten that thank you. And then stay in touch. And this can be hard for some folks. They might say, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be winding down our hiring process. Wait until, that 2 weeks is over, and then you can contact them if you haven't heard from them and follow up. You can send that polite email asking about your application, and they might get back to you with another timeline because they've been backlogged or whatnot. But it's great to stay in touch with them because it continues to show them that you're interested in the position and that you haven't forgotten about them. And then therefore they won't forget about you. This is a great guide on our website for interviewing for graduate students. So take a look at this. It has a lot of wonderful, chock full of great resources. And if you and your partner are expecting, know that there is something called the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, PDA. And this was amended within the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It's illegal for employers to discriminate against job applicants based on the status of being pregnant or childbirth. And so if it seems like an employer is discriminating on this cause, then they're actually subject to legal action. So the PDA states that if the company has 15 or more employees, they are actually subject to certain laws. And so it would be illegal for them to treat employees or job applicants differently than anybody else. They can't refuse to hire you based on the condition of being pregnant. They can't also deny you reasonable accommodations. So like we said about if you had to pump or if you were nursing or whatnot. And then they also can't force a pregnant employee to take leave if the individual is feeling okay to work. And also they are not allowed to provide less favorable benefits or pay based on being pregnant or expecting.
Yeah, so this is just a blog post I wrote along the idea of you might have done a lot of screening interviews on the phone or by video. And then at some point, there's an in-person one, right? And so you can certainly be pregnant and be very visibly pregnant and people not know it until you turn up, for the in-person interview. And then what do you do at that point in time, right? Because you don't have to address it. You don't have to bring attention to it. You don't have to acknowledge it at all. It's not, it's no one's business other than your own. But the reality is that as humans, everyone's going to be thinking it. You're going to be thinking about it. The interviewer's going to be thinking about it, even though they know that they, as Esther said, they cannot hold it against you consciously. And then, your subconscious kicks in and does all sorts of things. So this was supposed to explore the different options. One is certainly that you don't talk about it and you highlight the skills and the values and the knowledge areas that you bring that are going to add value to that employer, right? And that's how everyone should be judged for a role. The experience that you bring is key. The second is that you acknowledge it and you are confident in your statement up front, so then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day, right? So the tell me about yourself question in an interview, you might just make a statement of, obviously I'm pregnant, and I'd love to talk to you later in this interview about what that might look like in terms of how I could continue to bring value to this role and what that is. And then you're sort of off your mind so that you can focus on the things that you want to talk about. So there's no right way of doing it, right? Humans live in their heads a lot, and so people are going to be thinking things. But if you can control the narrative in whatever way you want, then chances are that everyone's going to be comfortable that you've thought about it. And so this is where I think the networking plays in, where you have had conversations with people and you say to them, well, how did you manage your workload when you were the project manager for this, and then you had to be away for several weeks? What did that look like? How did that work? And that might give you some insight into what you say. But you don't have to address it. It's just sometimes you may want to, but do it confidently and sort of positively.
When many of our workplaces were virtual, our office was virtual as well. I remember talking with a student who did a lot of her initial interviewing, and she was applying to be a nurse practitioner in a hospital setting. And she did a lot of her interviews over on Zoom, which is still taking place now. And she wasn't visibly pregnant on Zoom. And so we went back and forth with her about whether or not she should reveal that she is pregnant. And in discussing the timeline, and we didn't really tell her this is what you should do, but these are sort of things to consider. And she decided for herself that she was actually going to tell them, just because of the timeline of onboarding and taking her nursing certifications and things like that. And so the student decided for herself that she was going to reveal it, and it worked out very well for her. The employer actually really appreciated here in Philadelphia that she actually revealed that, because they could make a plan with her and for her.
Okay, and so the last step in our process today is sort of negotiating. So you've done the hard work, you've found organization, you've found roles, you've done some networking, you've applied, you've interviewed, and then, in an ideal world, you get an offer on the table to consider. We do, just like Esther has pointed out in some of our other topics, we do have a learn how to research salaries and negotiate offers section on our website, which sort of gathers together some of these resources that I'm going to be talking about, or at least some of the approaches that I'm going to be talking about. And much like the interviewing guide and the informational interviewing guide, we have a negotiating guide for graduate students and postdocs that really sort of walks you through, what this looks like as a process, when things happen, what you can say, what you might want to negotiate, and then has a few resources connected with that. So when you're ready for that, this is a fantastic guide to have. But in general terms, this is the process, right? So someone is you're going to interview, eventually they're going to reach out, possibly by phone or email, saying, would love to make you an offer. Your role is to say, great. Can you put that in writing for me? And then I'll be excited to look at it, right? So if someone calls you up on the phone, you don't accept anything, you say, great, I'm excited to get the hard copy version. And that could be an attached PDF. It's probably not going to be an actual letter these days. Then you're going to look at that offer and you're going to look at what they say. And they usually spell out, what the role is, the salary. They'll connect you to a page that has their benefits on it. And so that's where you need to look at whether there are, parental leave benefits or other elements of things that you're looking at. Those benefits typically aren't something that you can negotiate much with, right? You can't ask for more parental leave than other people in the organization have. They're fairly standard. And so what you're doing is you're sort of making sure that you are comfortable with the level of benefits there, rather than saying, well, I need more of this. But then there's always some flexibility. So I'm not saying you can't, but generally speaking, benefits, you opt into different types of benefits, but some are fixed across the institution. If you have any questions about what the offer says, you would reach back out and say, hey, I'd love to learn more about X, or I'd love to learn more about what the parental leave actually looks like, right? And so you might be able to schedule a time with an HR person just to clarify, not to negotiate, but just to clarify. Then in your own mind, based on your research and your benchmarking, you're going to come up with the things that are important to you. And you're going to sort of create an ask around those things that you want to negotiate for. And you're going to schedule a time to do this in person, on the phone, or by Zoom, in real time. And you're going to sort of make that ask. And the ask is really less about, I need this, right? So if you said, I need more money because I need a car to get to work, that's not as helpful or exciting to the employer, right? Because everyone needs a mode of transportation. But if you can identify the value that you bring to the organization, the skills that you have to offer, and you ask for support to make sure that you can do that in the best way possible, in the easiest way possible, that you can add value to the organization, that's oftentimes easier for them to get behind when negotiating. Great. This is a sort of a great topic to discuss with a career advisor and talk about what those priorities are, because it's going to be different for everyone and different for every role that's out there. But basically, you're going to make an ask and you're going to say, what can we do to get closer to this salary? Or what can we do to sort of increase the amount of leave, or whatever that looks like? Start date might be an ask. And then you're going to see what they say and then respond to that process. And then anything that is changed in the offer, you'd have an updated version of that offer letter sent to you. And that's the thing that you sign. It's not really a contract, but there's usually signing just to clarify that those things are agreed upon. There's lots of things that can be negotiated, everything from job title to start date. The thing that's most typical is salary, and salary will obviously help you no matter what your situation. If you need childcare or you need elements to sort of support your family, then a higher salary is oftentimes going to do that. So usually that's a standard thing that you might negotiate for. I have a great example, which is why I sort of highlighted childcare support here, of a colleague of mine who works as a career advisor for PhDs in a different role. She applied for a sort of an assistant dean or dean level role at an academic institution. And the thing that she negotiated for as a priority above salary was to be given access to the childcare, on-campus childcare, which usually has a long wait list. Right. And so you sign up for it, and then 2 years down the line, you maybe get access. And she said, what I would love to negotiate for is not only access to it, but to make sure that, when I start, I can put my child in this, in the childcare. And she got it. And obviously, she may have got less salary if she asked for more salary because of that. But it meant that every day was less stressful, because every day she would go to work and drop her child off there and pick the child up and leave. Right. So it made her life much easier and much more straightforward. And so in terms of priority, that was more important than having more money to pay for childcare somewhere else, which would have been more of a pain. So prioritizing, right? You can ask for a few things, you can't necessarily ask for everything, but that's how that sort of worked out in this particular example. A few negotiating resources. We have an online platform called Big Interview, which not only can be helpful with interviewing strategies and teaching you how to interview, they have these video curricula, but they have a negotiating curricula as well that you can take a look at for that, as well as a job search curriculum, which we'll talk about the job search process. LinkedIn, right? So we talked about LinkedIn in different ways, but as Penn students or postdocs, you'll all have access to LinkedIn Learning. So if you go to your profile, right in the top-hand corner, you should see the Learning button. If you click on that, you'll probably get to a page that looks like this. You'll be able to click on the University of Pennsylvania option, and that takes you to this library of resources on a wide range of topics, right? So if you want to look for negotiating your job offer and salary, there's 3,000 mini courses or mini videos that you can watch that might give you insight into that. So no matter the question that you have, you can usually find resources on LinkedIn Learning that are going to be helpful. And then the two platforms I talked about earlier, Beyond Graduate School for master's students, how to negotiate a job offer, and the PhD career training platform for doctoral students and postdocs has a similar video along those lines. You can access these at any time, 24/7. They're really great resources. And then I wrote another blog post. I really dislike negotiating, because I do. I think people should just really give me lots of more money all the time without me having to ask for it. But it is a lifelong skill that you actually do need to practice, and you do need to sort of prepare and do your research to be able to support what you're doing. And when you're trying to maximize the flexibility in your work-life balance, it becomes increasingly important to make sure that you're asking for the right things at the right time and be confident about that.